shop. The CBD on our website is 99% pure, all natural, no pesticides, non-GMO, is grown organically right here in Colorado, and is 100% THC free. Oh, and did you know ours is the lowest price CBD anywhere in northern Colorado? For all your CBD needs, just log on to 1360khnc.com/shop.
Hey, Larry Elder here. Thank you for listening to the Bucky Dillon Show, hosted by the Liberty Revolt and KHNC.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. 6:05 in the morning, January 22nd. It's great to be with you. I have a regular guest who's with me on a semi-regular basis. Kevin, how you doing? We are getting no audio from Kevin. Let me see if I can fix this. No, nothing. All right, looks like we're going to have to try another way. Kevin, why don't you call in? All right, forget about it. Guys, so what I wanted to talk about with you guys today is something that you don't hear nearly enough about. What is going on with militaries around the world? But before we get to that, let me give you guys just a little update about myself and what's going on in my little corner of the world. This is the Bucky Dillon Show. I'm your host, Bucky Dillon. This is a collaborative between myself and the freedom-loving, free-thinking patriot community here in northern Colorado and all around the world, tuning in on the website 1360khnc.com. We're going to have a moderate day. It's going to be a little chilly. It shouldn't break 45 degrees at any point. It's going to be mostly cloudy. There seems to be a little bit of construction going on near the Johnstown exit this morning if you're headed southbound from Fort Collins to Denver. So be aware of that. There's a couple things that happened on this day in history. It was on this day, January 22nd, that Prince William of Orange in 1689 summons convention parliament to discuss ruling jointly with his wife Mary of exiled King James II. Kevin, how are you doing today?
Let's see. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. You're a little loud.
Okay, perfect. So I'm doing good, man. At least I got this working. So yeah, though. What was that little factual bit of history there? What's today in history?
Let's see. In 1905, in St. Petersburg, Russia, a large demonstration of workers led by Father Gapon marched to the Winter Palace with a petition to the Tsar. Troops fire on protesters in what becomes known as Bloody Sunday.
Oh my God.
In 1973, Roe versus Wade, U.S. Supreme Court legalizes most abortions. Oh, here's a good one. In 2020, China locks down the city of Wuhan and its 11 million people in an effort to control the COVID-19, with a then official death toll of 17 and over 500 people ill. Now, it should be mentioned that at this time, they just a couple days ago let the UN researchers in to look into the origins of the virus. It's almost been a year. Can you believe it?
Dude,
and this was at a time.
We're at our 10-month anniversary for 2 weeks to slow the spread.
Wow, isn't that great?
we're like right there. We're almost at our 1 year anniversary for 2 weeks to stop the spread. But it is interesting that we mentioned two major communist things. First, Bloody Sunday, which, for those unaware, was one of the big events during the Bolshevik Revolution. On the way to it, we should say, and then the China thing. Yeah, so we have to deal with the fact that this is the anniversary of when the Chinese Communist Party, went full Chinese Communist Party and started locking people in houses in Wuhan, China. And I think this is about the time last year where it started to really crop up. Like this is about the time, I don't know about you, but this is about the time last year when it started to go, okay, so what is this whole COVID thing that's coming out of China? So yeah.
Right, and it should be noted that at this time, China was still allowing travel from China everywhere else after they had shut down travel from Wuhan to the rest of China. They were exporting as many people as they possibly could all around the world, particularly the West.
Yes. And it is also...
And countries that they had given loans to. See, China for the last several years actually has been basically setting countries up with debt traps. What they do is they say, oh, well, you could be rich like us if you take this money from us. We're going to give you this, we're going to give you that, and then you just have to pay us back. And if you can't pay us back, then we'll just have to seize the infrastructure that we're helping you build. So they'll go to New Zealand and they'll build some elaborate naval port, and they'll say, this is for you guys, but you have to pay us back. And then obviously they can't pay them back, and then China seizes the naval port, and now they have, they control of, a naval port, a trading route.
It goes to
New Zealand, right? So that's how they do it.
It goes a step beyond that, man. You want to get even more angry? So China is classified as a developing nation according to the WTO and IMF. So they are actually getting loans from the global community that they are then turning into loans that they're giving to smaller countries. And they're using the money that they get from smaller countries to pay back their loans to the WTO and the IMF, which is probably the funniest thing I've ever heard about.
Wow, everything is going well. We're right on track. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 2021.
Join us and don't miss a moment of the Alex Jones Show, your number one source for real independent media. Find out what the mainstream media doesn't want you to know. InfoWars is pro-America, pro-family, pro-freedom. We are rebooting 1776. Exclusive reports, live coverage, information you won't find anywhere else. Tomorrow's news today. Stay informed by listening to KHNC 1360 AM.
Alex is here, 1 o'clock, Monday through Friday, right here on the Roar of the Rockies.
Socialism, like the ancient ideas from which it springs, confuses the distinction between government and society. As a result, every time we object to a thing being done by government, the socialists conclude we object to it being done at all. We disapprove of state education, and the socialists say we are opposed to any education. Socialism. Frederick Bastiat, The Law.
The Federal Reserve is in control of our money, but lately control is the last word you would use to describe the Fed. Emergency rate cuts, huge increases in their balance sheet, the constant blowing of bubbles and boom and bust cycles that just leave most of us busted. I'm Joe Jaquin, owner of the Patriot Trading Group, and we have been protecting people's wealth for almost 25 years. Stop playing the Fed's game and get your wealth protected. Call us at 800-951-0592 or visit our website at allamericangold.com.
You might want to sit down before you hear this. Inactivity leads to 3.2 million deaths a year. So actually, you might want to stand up. Whoa, you just did a squat. See what we did there? All right, everyone, just take a seat. Oh, now stand up. That's 2. Feel that burning in your thighs? That means you're doing it right. Feels good, doesn't it? Get started at heart.org/make moves. Unless you're doing squats. those can come first.
欢迎收听 KHNC 广播电台 Bucky Dillon 早安秀，大家的早安广播，谢谢。
So, did you hear that one of Biden's first moves was to remove the military flags from the Oval Office?
I had not heard that. Oh my God. That is actually a little bit infuriating.
Right? President Joe Biden removed the U.S. military branch flags from the Oval Office on Wednesday, a staple in the office during Donald Trump's term. The missing flags were first reported by the Washington Post, who noted the absence of the flags that had been on the left side of the office near the window for years.
I guess he didn't want the daily reminder
they're also vetting. They were vetting the federal troops that were guarding the Capitol for Trump supporters. Yep. Of course, I think the vast majority of our troops supported Trump. First president in 39 years not to get us engaged in another war. Is it technically 4 years now?
Yeah, I mean, he's the first since what, Jimmy Carter? Loyalty test.
I think it is.
Hallmark.
We have lost audio from our guest once again, have we?
Can you not hear me again?
Oh, I hear you.
Okay, there we go.
There you are.
Yeah, no, they forgot. Now I lost my place because I was trying to figure out the audio situation. The loyalty tests have been a hallmark of authoritarian, totalitarian regimes for at least the last, 1,000 years. If you look back over during Nazi Germany and you look back during the USSR, loyalty tests are a very common thing for the military because, the dictator wants to make sure, hey, when I'm having civilians and stuff murdered, I need to make sure that they're on my side. I need to make sure that they're not going to flip out on me. But yeah, loyalty tests are like, oh, if you're not loyal to Biden, you can't be here. It's like the whole point is to not have a military loyal to any one thing. So I don't know, man.
Right, loyal to the country.
Exactly.
Which would be preferable. And that's actually interesting because it's interesting that they would be demanding loyalty from the troops while simultaneously Biden is removing the military flags from his office. Right? Yeah, so it's a very one-sided loyalty test, huh?
Dude, what Middle Eastern country do you think Joe Biden's going to start dropping the bombs on first?
Oh gosh, it's not going to be Iran because he's improving a new and improved Iranian nuclear deal that goes even bolder than before. And not only that, they're talking about implementing a Russian nuclear deal, and Russia's all about it.
ISIS is already making a comeback in the news, man. There were 2 suicide bombings yesterday
in Baghdad, right?
Yeah, it was the first one. The guy pretended to get sick, and so he got a crowd around him. He blew up, and then when the first responders got there, this is a very common tactic. When the first responders and all the help got there, they blew up the second one. It was about 35 plus dead, 100 and something injured. But it's the first time I've heard of an ISIS bombing in a while. It's the first time I've heard of anything other than Trump for a while.
There are a lot of people who have been emboldened by Joe Biden's election.
Yeah.
And I can't say that too many of them are like great friends of mine.
No. Well, the thing is like it's starting to feel like, or it seems like they're going to start trying to. We're going to hear a lot more about bombings and stuff because I promise you, man, within the year, Joe Biden's going to be telling us, hey, we need to send our troops over to this country over here so that we can fight and stuff. But look, man, the military-industrial complex is going to keep going on, and just watch it in the news. Watch for the reports of violence around the world. They're going to start focusing on the Middle East, and I think ISIS is going to come back, and before you know it, they're going to be sending our troops off to a new country.
Well, they need a distraction from China. Speaking
Yes.
of loyalty tests, I heard something the other day that China has now implemented essentially what it is a device inside the helmets of the PLA soldiers that could be remotely detonated, right? So they're essentially holding their own soldiers hostage, and if they don't follow orders, their superior officer at the press of a button can just blow a hole through their head.
That's insane.
Right?
That's absolutely insane.
I know if that sounds dystopian to you. I mean, their excuse for it is that if the soldiers are injured, then they wouldn't want sensitive information getting leaked out, or they wouldn't want their soldier to be dishonored by just slowly bleeding out and whatever, that they should be able to protect their dignity by killing themselves. But when the button's in somebody else's hands, it seems more like a hostage situation.
Yeah, no,
And
that is.
China's military actually has a lot of problems with its soldiers. So number one, they suffer what's called Little Emperor syndrome. Basically, since 1979, they've had the one-child policy in place, and what this means is all their young boys have had overwhelming attention from their parents, and because of the economic prosperity, they've actually lived very easy lives, right? Being single parent, several generations of single children being raised in economic prosperity. They haven't really had to face that much hardship. And of course, China controls violence in its own community so well that they've never seen a gun, right? Until they joined the military. They've never really engaged in any difficult combat. They're very sensitive, and kind of proof of this came out when they had that border skirmish with India, and China outnumbered them. I think it was like 300 to 50, right? And Chinese soldiers, there was footage that came out of the Chinese soldiers literally crying on the bus on the way to the skirmish, and the Indian, like, they might have had 100 forces, but 50 of those forces were India's like really powerful soldiers. And India has been dealing with terrorism from Pakistan for a while. So they've actually been engaged in combat, where the Chinese PLA hasn't really been engaged in any real combat since the Communist Revolution, essentially. So their soldiers got just crushed. And what was kind of seen as a betrayal by the Chinese soldiers is, in order to save face, China wouldn't recognize their dead, so they pretended like it didn't happen. They acted like they didn't have count, whereas India actually held like memorial ceremonies for their soldiers, and they really gave a lot of honor to the soldiers that gave themselves to that skirmish, and made a big deal about it, and had like a whole parade, and gave stipends to their families and everything else. Whereas China is just like, no, we didn't have casualties, and they didn't give any honors to their dead soldiers publicly. And so a lot of the Chinese soldiers are like, why would I fight for you guys? Why would I give my life for you guys if I'm just cannon fodder and I'm not going to get any honors out of it, right? And then they go and install devices in their helmets, say, if you don't do what you're told, we'll just suicide you, right? So
Yep.
it's,
dude, India, first and foremost, that they have a very long history of incredibly capable military. They've had to, like you said, they've been dealing with border skirmishes for like decades now. And they've been dealing with border skirmishes up in the Hindu Kush Mountains, which are basically one of the tallest mountain ranges in the world. Right next to the Himalayas, the tallest mountain range in the world. So
right,
India's
tough battles on tough terrain.
Yeah, India's got a lot of experience with that, but it's how the Chinese government treats its soldiers is very telling. And yeah, if I was a soldier in the Chinese army, I would be very hesitant to even consider dying for a country whose government is going to just completely crap on my grave and make it so that I can't, so that I'm not remembered. Basically, like, oh my gosh, I lost this little battle, so I no longer exist. Well, you're not going to win every battle you're in. So
right. No, there's a lot of things going on. Of course, the Iran nuclear deal. I would like to kind of give what I think is the best metaphor for the Iran nuclear deal that I've been able to come up with. And it's essentially because a lot of people just say, oh, the Iran nuclear deal, people have a lot of faith in diplomacy. They think, oh, it just meant that if you and I made a deal that you couldn't buy a gun, well, then we're all good because you wouldn't have a gun. But in the course of doing so, I allocate you billions of dollars that you spend to fund terrorist activities. And there's nothing in this little agreement that says that you can't go out and buy a trigger and a barrel and everything else you need, you just all the parts. And as soon as the deal's over, you just assemble it, right? Which is basically what Israeli intelligence forces discovered about Iran. They said, look, they're still developing their nuclear program. They're just doing it in a very indirect way.
So there's little to no evidence that Iran has anywhere near enough uranium to do anything nuclear bomb worthy. They don't have they don't have the stuff it takes. The Ayatollah, both the Ayatollah Khamenei and Khomeini, the last two, have said that chemical weapons, which includes nuclear weapons, are halal. They are not, or haram. Sorry, not halal. Haram, which means that they're not allowed to be used. They do not I don't know, man. There's a lot of misinformation that's been coming out of the Israeli camp on this one too. They hate Iran, and so they are also incentivized to propagandize against Iran. Netanyahu's been talking about the Iran nuclear bomb for decades now. The Iran nuclear deal, yeah, you know what? We want Iran to not have a nuclear weapon, very true, but at the same time, there's no real evidence that they even have anywhere near the capabilities to have one, nor do they also do not have the okay from the most powerful man in the country to make them. So this one's a little bit difficult because there's a lot of propaganda around the whole thing, and I personally am struggling to figure out what the truth is anymore about it.
Sure. Well, what are your thoughts on the Iran nuclear deal? Should we join?
I think that we need to get the hell out of the Middle East. It's getting a little ridiculous being how much we've been over there. Iran doesn't have nuclear bombs. We pissed off Saudi Arabia so much by joining the Iran nuclear deal that they started to bomb Yemen even more. And so we pissed off Saudi Arabia with it. We're like, no matter what we do, it's going to be the wrong answer. I don't know. Iran is a horrible country, and the nuclear deal did give them a lot of money that they did use to funnel into terrorism. So I'm not saying we need to get back into it, but I also think that this idea that they were just, inches away from a nuclear bomb needs to be put to rest. They are not, at least from the sources that I've listened to. I don't know, man. I think that Joe Biden is going to capitulate to whatever he's told to do. We're going to be back in the Iran nuclear deal. Of course we are. And at the end of the day, Israel's not going to be hit with a nuke from Iran. So if that's your number one concern, then it's a good deal. If not, I don't know, man. I am not a fan of foreign aid. I'm not a fan of giving other countries our money, no matter who the country is.
You're listening to the Bucky Dillon Show, our morning show, a collaborative between myself and the free-thinking, free-spirited Patriot community in Northern Colorado, tuning in on the radio broadcast 1360 KHNC.
Hello, my name is Keith, and I'm the host of the program, The Pursuit of God, on 1360 KHNC. And I invite you to join me Saturday mornings at 11 o'clock as we go on this great pursuit of God.
This is Sam Shook, Navy vet and Medicare specialist. I just want to thank the KHNC listeners for their support and trust in me as their Medicare specialist. If you are currently on Plan F, we are in a window of opportunity that can save you a lot of money towards your monthly premium. Please contact me at 970-413-4939. If you are getting into Medicare soon or are already enrolled and have questions, please call me at 970-413-4939. Again, thanks KHNC listeners.
Reasons to own gold. Reason number 725.
The government goes out of its way to make you believe Social Security has an account with your name on it with money just for you. But the Supreme Court ruled that payments due under Social Security are not property rights and are not protected. Social Security is merely a tax, and the government is under no obligations to pay you anything. Call the Patriot Trading Group, 800-951-0592, or visit allamericangold.com.
Hi, Brian Kilmeade here. Thanks so much for listening to me every weekday from 7 a.m. till 10 a.m. right here on KHNC, the roar of the Rockies. Hey, do you own a business in northern Colorado or surrounding areas? Are you looking to reach a conservative, loyal audience which could grow your business? Well, take my advice and contact my friends at KHNC. KHNC has a rapidly growing conservative family-based audience, and you can speak directly to them. Now, if you're looking for the type of customers or clients that believe in the principles that our great country was founded upon, just contact my friends at KHNC, the roar of the Rockies, and learn how you can be heard right on the air. Just call 970-587-5003 or email on the air at 1360khnc.com. That's 970-587-5003 or email on the air at 1360khnc.com. Take it from me, Brian Kilmeade. You can showcase your business to the folks that are helping to take our country back.
Hi, KHNC listeners. Jerry Axon with Sears Real Estate. Please keep me in mind when you are ready to buy or sell, or if you have real estate questions. Another option is the lease with option to buy. The lease program is set up with a year-to-year lease and guarantees a fixed rent and purchase price for 5 years. Jerry Axon, 970-576-1089, 576-1089. Jerry at SearsRealEstate.com.
This is Larry Jagger, the host of the SCL Mortgage Show. SCL has a loan program for just about every residential need. Listen and learn what that means to you on Saturday at 12 noon on KHNC 1360. NMLS number 1200716.
Great minds think alike. Thank you for listening to the Bucky Dillon Show, hosted by the Liberty Revolt. Join me, Larry Elder, today at 5 on 1360 KHNC. Now back to Bucky Dillon.
President-elect Biden's Secretary of the State nominee said the incoming administration would seek a longer and stronger nuclear agreement with Iran as he laid out a foreign policy vision for the next 4 years. However, Anthony Bilkin also said Washington is a long way from reaching a new accord with Tehran, echoing comments made earlier in the day by Biden's pick to lead the nation's spy bureaucracy. We would have to see, once the president is in office, what steps Iran actually takes and evaluate whether they're coming back into compliance with their obligations, Blinken said, told to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee during his confirmation hearing on January 19th. Biden has said he would like the United States to rejoin the 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action that limits nuclear programs in Iran if Tehran returns to compliance with the deal?
Dude, the Iran nuclear deal, just the whole Iran situation is it's very rough because I mean we were instrumental in the fall of the regime beforehand. There's a lot that there's just a lot going on in that part of the world. It just makes you ask, why do we have to continue to be involved in foreign disputes? I mean, Iran's biggest threat is Iraq right next door. Those two have been going at it for years. The Persians and Iraq have been at each other's throats. And at the end of the day, I just ask, what is it? How is it our business what these countries are doing to each other? I mean, we have our own problems at home. We do not need to be the world's police. But at the same time, we also have to be constantly on edge trying to combat China and Russia's expansionist tendencies. You have Russia constantly trying to expand into Eastern Europe and Northwestern Asia, while China's trying to get its foothold in Africa. I mean, China's got a lot of these African countries are deeply in debt with China. You mentioned New Zealand, and I don't know how much interaction China and New Zealand have had. There's obviously going to be some because they're so close. But if you look at what China's been doing with Africa and the various countries within Africa, like Nigeria and Ethiopia and all these other countries, they are taking control economically. They are spreading their sphere of influence, and they're saying, hey, we'll build you roads, we'll build you infrastructure, just give us all your oil, right? And what we have to be doing is we have to be trying to beat them to the punch in these countries. A lot of Southeast Asian countries know better than to go along with the Chinese Communist Party, like Vietnam, like Laos, like Bangladesh. These countries know to like push back against China, but a lot of African countries have been so impoverished for so long that they're gonna, if you start telling them, hey, we're gonna pave roads across your country for you and build the infrastructure necessary for you to be able to have like really good trade through your country and be able to actually start addressing the issues of poverty outside of your capital cities. Like, these countries are going to jump at it, wouldn't you? If you'd had at this point like 150 years of pretty terrible living, first at the hands of colonies and then the post-colonial issues that have come up. So America needs to do a better job of economically making a push into Africa.
Right. Which it's interesting that you say that because, people accuse China of implementing debt traps, that a lot of this is them setting themselves up to essentially own through debt these countries. But, an argument could be made that we've been doing the same thing with foreign aid for years. I mean, most of the nefarious things that people say China is involved in, they learned from us, right?
Well, we don't ask
one thing we've been doing is we've been giving all this foreign aid to these countries in the same sense that we give welfare to people here, right? And then we say, oh, well, if you want you got to do what we want if you want these foreign aid benefits, right?
Yep.
And so in a way we've been doing the same thing, but China's actually has a much smarter tactic where we're spending we're sending canned food, maybe building some hospitals, giving like mosquito nets, right? They're building infrastructure because they want these countries to have manufacturing. They want these countries to have trade routes. They want these countries to have 5G, Huawei, Chinese telecom infrastructure that they can, of course, infiltrate, right? And so I think China's doing a much smarter job of the same thing that we've been doing, essentially.
But better. You actually make a really good point there. So there are economists out there that make the argument that what we have been doing with Africa has actually been holding them back because we give so much, right? We give food, we give clothes, but we don't give them what they need, like infrastructure, like you said, cell networks. In fact, they make the argument that what I made the joke about giving them last year's Super Bowl losers shirts, but that's actually been detrimental on their economy. A lot of African countries, especially in right around the green belt in Africa, they have really good potential for the textile industry. The textile industry is huge in a lot of these countries, and we have been detrimental in helping it flourish. We actually haven't been putting forth any kind of policies that would actually make these countries able to stand up on their own. You saw it with colonialism, especially in former French colonies. When the French would colonize, they treated the people as just tools rather than people. You know, that was one of the things that kind of separated the British and the French colonies from each other. Whereas the British realized that the best way to make your colonies prosperous is to actually give them the tools to prosper themselves individually. The French kind of just treated them as tools, which is why former British colonies are America, Australia, New Zealand, India. They're a lot more successful, whereas former French colonies are like, Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, they don't do as well. And China is kind of taken the same. It's a different approach. It's a different set of circumstances, but it's kind of the same. China's like, okay, we'll help you get the infrastructure. We'll help your electrical grid. We'll help your roads. We'll help you get water. You just have to be our ally. Whereas we were just handing them stuff out, and it's kind of a really good representation of how politicians in America treat American people. They think the best way to make them prosperous is to give them handouts, whereas the true best way to help them prosper is to give them the tools.
Right. You're listening to the Bucky Dillon Show, 1360 KHNC.
"1360 KHNC is proud to announce our partnership with My Kind CBD, a local Colorado-based company that uses no pesticides, no herbicides, completely organic, no heavy metals. All their products are CAO certified. That's right, independently lab certified. Our prices are the best in the country. Go out to 1360khnc.com and hit the shopping cart button and make your purchase today.
Hi, this is Mike Morris, owner of Warriors Revolution Tactical in Longmont. At Warriors Revolution, we have the largest selection of tactical gear and ammo in northern Colorado. But what many people may not know is that we now sell firearms. And even despite the recent run on firearms and ammunition, we have plenty of product in the store, including ARs, AKs, Glocks, SIGs, HK, and more. And don't forget all the bulk ammunition at the best prices in town. Need to do a private firearms transfer? We can do that too. I am a veteran of the United States Marine Corps, and our team is made up of veterans and security experts, not a bunch of salesmen. Our team is trained and fought with much of the actual equipment we sell. And one thing you should know is that we support the foundations and principles this great country was founded upon. So if you need tactical gear, ammo, firearms, AR parts or upgrades, and even survival accessories, stop by and visit us on Ken Pratt Boulevard and Bowen Street in Longmont, or visit warriorsrevolution.com. That's warriorsrevolution.com.
Hey everybody, we are
Lady Annabella.
When we started out in Nashville, we never imagined what we were going to be able to achieve. We got here because we worked together and had each other's backs.
In America, we have the privilege of being a diverse society made up of people from all kinds of backgrounds. And that's a big part of what makes this country such a great place to live.
When we put aside our differences and work together, there is no challenge too great to overcome. This message is brought to you by the U.S. Air Force.
The Bucky Dillon Show is a Liberty Revolt Media production. www.libertyrevoltmedia.com.
So I have here just one more great example of it, in my opinion. Here's the headline from NPR. As Bahamas turn to recovery, United States worries about China stepping in. President Trump has promised to help the Bahamas recover from Hurricane Dorian. The devastating storm that has decimated parts of the island nation. The United States is not only concerned about the Bahamian people, but also the national security implications. If China steps in to help fill the country's vast needs, essentially what's going on is China is giving disaster relief funding in the Bahamas in exchange for the ability to use the Bahamas as a military base right off the coast of Florida.
Well, so it does give them access, but not really, because their ships will never make it there, right? We have absolute control over the sea in that area, but it is a hallmark of their current status, which is just give all these countries aid, make good relations for that, so that in the inevitable circumstances where they're starting to have to call in their debts, not so much money wise, but just relations wise, they have access to everywhere. It is, Mao once said he was going to destroy America not through military might, but through just influence and from the inside. And you can see it. China buys up so much real estate in America. It's crazy. But it does highlight the fact that the Chinese Communist Party is many things, but stupid is not one of them. And they understand fully they do not have the capabilities to stand up 1v1 with the United States of America. They do not. There is no way they can possibly do it, and they know that. So they're bolstering their defenses through other means.
Right, 80% of Chinese Party military leaders don't necessarily work on warfare. They study politics. Yeah. Political training is a huge part of it. Their number one strategy is economic and political subversion. And that's what they're worried about in these Bahama bases, is they're actually worried about China's ability to gather intelligence more so than they are about China shooting off a rocket, right? Yeah, exactly. They're much more worried about China getting so close that they could essentially spy much more effectively. But I mean, considering that we have Mulan, Mitch McConnell, and Beijing Biden, I don't think they need it.
As well as all these different apps like Zoom, like TikTok, like so many different apps that are attached to the Chinese Communist Party and that funnel information through China. You have Tencent, which is basically a Chinese Communist Party front into the entertainment industry. Tencent owns a majority of Riot Games. League of Legends is basically owned by China, and that's one of the biggest video games in the world. The Brooklyn Nets or not the Brooklyn Nets. I think it's the Brooklyn Nets are owned. A significant portion of the Brooklyn Nets in the NBA is owned by Tencent, which is, like I said, part of the Chinese Communist Party. They're trying to win the war through cultural influence. And it is a tactic that is going to be very effective against, especially since they use Marxist tactics to do it as a Marxist country. Although not necessarily, they're more, closer to Stalin than Marx, obviously. But their intellectuals are very well versed in Marxist cultural tactics.
Right.
They're very good.
Here's just one example.
Yep.
These are 12 Chinese-owned media companies in the United States. AMC Theaters, The Carmike 10, Jurassic World, Dick Clark Productions, The Wrap Covering Hollywood, I Am Global. Let's see.
I believe it's Tencent that owns...
Riot Games owners, Tencent. Dichotomy Creative Group owner, Lee Eco.
Yeah, basically, but the theme is that they're trying to win through infiltrating our cultural norms and trying to normalize tactics that are very successful in communist regimes. And it's why we have to be on guard. It's why we need to start taking more protectionist stances against China. Just saying one easy way to combat their influence in our country is to just say, hey, look, you have to be an American citizen in order to, or you have to be an American resident to start buying up property, to buy more than a single piece of property, right? Or there has to be some way where we can kind of curtail their ability to invest in America in a way that gives them power. Maybe make introduce the nuclear option, not nuclear, literally, but metaphorically, just say, hey, at any point, the American government can seize back all the property you've purchased. If you're a foreign entity, if you're an American entity, they cannot do that. They're not allowed to take property from Americans, obviously. But say the building that they're trying to take is Chinese, yeah, you can just take it because it's Chinese owned. Therefore, it's in America. Therefore, it's our right, not theirs. And which as a libertarian, it's very difficult for me to say that. But at the end of the day, we do have to look beyond just what is on the surface here and realize that China is making very tactical decisions in how they approach combating America's influence around the world, and they're very good at it. They are very successful at it.
And what's interesting is they're very good at utilizing our freedoms against us, right?
Exactly.
So we're very lenient on the media. They lobby millions on our mainstream media to get them to talk about our own. And this is what Chinese state-owned media says. They says that our media infrastructure got Joe Biden elected. They're celebrating it. And part of what they're so excited about is they know that our media isn't going to spend very much time talking about what China's up to. Instead, they're going to be, crapping on the U.S. and implementing woke capitalism, right?
COVID has stopped Triangle Cross Ranch from conducting any fundraisers since March of 2020. Current state government issues has stopped our ability to have fundraisers until March 2021. We need financial donations to get through the rest of the year. Any financial support is welcome, or just send $1 US silver dollar a month to support our Christian mission. Triangle Cross Ranch, 36049 County Road 51, P.O. Box 727, Gailton, Colorado, 80622.
Know someone with a drinking or drug problem? Learn how to get sober after we share these stories.
I was 35 with two beautiful children when my life and addiction started to spiral out of control. After my divorce, I went into a depression cycle and started drinking more often and using prescription drugs. After my second DWI and arrest, my ex-husband threatened to take our children away from me.
I was 17 when I became addicted to heroin and meth. I thought I could quit on my own, but I couldn't. It hit me when I was arrested.
Get sober now. Your private insurance may cover costs and we'll get you here. It's simple. Just call Elite Rehab Placement right now. Please don't wait. Your life matters to us. 800-958-2153. 800-958-2153. 800-958-2153. That's 800-958-2153.
The Patriot Trading Group is a different kind of gold and silver company, cleaning up the industry for 21 years. Are you tired of the high-pressured sales tactics, the constant phone calls? Are you done with the bait and switch? You just want to be treated fairly with honesty and respect? That's exactly what you get when you call 800-951-0592. You have my word on it. I'm Joe Jaquin, CEO of the Patriot Trading Group. Check us out online at allamericangold.com.
All of the music for the Bucky Dillon Morning Show was provided by my band, Beer for Bears. Find us on social media by looking for Beer for Bears. Guys, the Bucky Dillon Morning Show is sponsored by Jerry at Sears Real Estate. Guys, Jerry has been in the northern Colorado area for 60 years, and he's been in real estate since 2005. That's about 16 years. So he knows exactly what he's looking for, exactly what to avoid, and he's very competent at finding the best possible house for you at the best possible price. My wife and I are currently in the process of buying our first home, and it's an extraordinarily intimidating process. I mean, this is a contract with hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line. I can now officially say I'm $300 something thousand in debt. So that's a great place to be. Don't go at it alone, right? And if you want to support the show, that is only possible by supporting our advertisers. So there's a lot of realtors in the Colorado area, but if you're interested in purchasing a home, please consider my friend. It's going to be a great decision, and it also supports the show and helps us keep putting out content and keep working to be a voice of reason. And clearly, our society needs a voice of reason. I would like to touch on your point that China is infiltrating us culturally and exploiting our freedoms to do so.
Yep.
One example. China is infiltrating American universities and research centers in a bid to build up its power, Secretary of the State Mike Pompeo said. Americans must know how the CCP is poisoning the well of our higher education for its own ends and how these actions degrade our freedoms and national security, Mr. Pompeo said at a speech at Georgia Tech University. He recalls how Georgia Tech professor Wang Feiling was kidnapped by Chinese authorities several years ago during a visit here. They wanted information about his research in China and his time in my alma mater, West Point. They thought they could intimidate him or recruit him because he's ethnically Chinese. The professor was released after pressure from the university. But Mr. Pompeo said the lesson from the incident is clear. The Chinese Communist Party wants what we have, and it'll do whatever it takes to get it, from stealing our stuff to pressuring critics of China to keep quiet. Mr. Pompeo said Beijing's goal is to dominate the United States and the free world, a goal that many in the West had not recognized until recently. And they actually did come out and say this publicly recently when they were talking about their response to the coronavirus versus ours. They said the United States is such a mess. They're totally incompetent. They have failed their people. Well, we have succeeded, and we have made our people proud. We have accelerated our place in the world, and we have closed the gap, and we will soon be able to dominate and crush the United States, and they will never recover. That's literally what they said.
Yep.
And when you want to talk to your liberals about, hey, $93 trillion Green New Deal and a couple trillion here and a couple trillion here, and let's just spend ourselves into oblivion. Remember, China is the one buying the debt.
Well,
they
yes
own
and
our
no.
debt, and they can call in on it.
Well, so they own about $1.5 to $2 trillion of our debt. We've done a good job of not selling most of it to them. But I do want to touch on a point. Colorado State has a Confucius Institute on its campus. Now, for those of you unaware, Confucius Institutes are basically the Chinese Communist Party. Imagine if the CIA had just sites on American universities that allow them to just spy on what's being taught and spy on the students. Now, that's what Confucius Institutes are for the CCP. And Colorado State has one on its campus. Do not ignore the threat of China on our culture. They own CNN, they own MSNBC, they have really good ties with them. So just be aware of what China's trying to do to our culture.
You're listening to the Bucky Dillon Morning Show. Damn, I wish we had more time. We will come back again soon and continue talking about this topic. Thanks for joining us, Kevin. Hey, Northern Colorado Patriots. I'll see you Monday morning.
Does this corrupt monetary system give you a whack to the head or a poke in the eye? Call Patriot Trading Group at 800-951-0592. That's 800-951-0592. Don't be a stooge. Buy gold and silver today.
Is the driveway made of fruit leather, or has the apple stopped appling?